Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Hassan Talks podcast. This episode comes as well as part of the series that's Sudanese creators. We're still trying to get to know more Sudanese initiatives, organizations, individuals who are doing amazing work online or on the ground, either in Sudan or in the diaspora. So we give them some sort of a platform on this podcast to listen to their stories, to get to know them better and see their future projects. And for this episode, super happy, super glad to have Phila organization on the podcast for the first time. So for this time, a representative from the organization, an active member who is Mohammed Abu-Bakr, will be taking us to that side of the management and all the work that we don't know that goes behind the doors. And then we see, of course, we see the end result on the ground of Phila. So super happy to have him on the podcast. And now it's their time to tell their story. So hello, Mohammed.
Hello, Hassan. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. Honestly, any chance for us to get the word out about the struggle that is going on in Sudan, certain issues that go unnoticed, and the work that we do is a huge pleasure, honestly, for us. It helps us in a way spread the word about the issues that are going in Sudan. Sudan have been silent for too long, and I think such an amazing platform provides the world with an insight on what is going on in Sudan, exactly what issues need to be tackled and what issues are being tackled by either us or any other initiative that is working now in Sudan. So for that, I'm very grateful again. And yeah, honestly, just very glad to be here with you.
Okay, that's amazing. Of course, like there are multiple or good number of organizations who work in Sudan. You hear a lot of names and you see a lot of work done, but there is like something always very special about every organization. That's I believe, an organization that's like charity organization, like what you guys do. I think that's quite special as well. And all I want to know, and I'm very interested to know, and I hope the listeners as well, like or the viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, they want to know how Phila started. So I don't know, if, of course, like if you were there from the beginning or you're just like a recent member of the organization, but if you have the story, please go ahead and tell us how you guys started.
Okay, so I'm actually the founder of the Phila organization.
I had no idea.
Yeah, we started in August of 2019, on the 25th of August of 2019. And it started with an idea. I've worked closely, honestly, with a lot of orphanages in Sudan and in a lot of similar capacities in Sudan before. And the thing that always drew my attention and the attention of the people that worked with me to start this was how issues are not being directly tackled. There are certain topics that are constantly avoided. For instance, we started by working on the orphanages, which was a very sensitive topic at the time because of the stigma that surrounds such institutions in Sudan. And Phila came to be as a simple idea. What if we can make a difference? What if we can actually change something that has not been addressed before? What if we can solve an issue that has not been solved for years and years throughout different governments and managements and organizations? And our main focus at the time was, why is there social inequality in Sudan? The main focus was the fact that, for instance, orphans in Sudan are not treated the same. They're not called the same. They're not addressed as children. They're addressed as something else. And why is there always stigma about working in an orphanage? Why do Sudanese families, and I say this from experience, why do Sudanese families always scrutinize charity work in Sudan? And it was basically burned down and broken down to the fact that there isn't any trust in any charity organization or any charity entity in Sudan. There is that gap between giving something to someone else to give it to someone else. The gap in the middle is what makes the difference. And so we decided to, okay, what if we did the work ourselves? What if we go hands-on, paint walls, break down walls, build walls, change the environment that those children live in, and let's base our future projects on that idea of doing it ourselves and doing it the way we believe is the right way moving forward. And in a nutshell, that is how Phila came to be.
Wow, that's absolutely brilliant. For me, it's quite interesting to see an organization led by like young people trying to do the work themselves. You know, like even like work with their hands. You know, change everything, and that's brilliant. But I go back to what you said, that you guys started in August 2019.
Yeah,
a year ago. So I believe, can we say that Phila is a result of a revolution in Sudan as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. The revolution not only allowed us a space to actually think of such solutions and think the way we thought at the beginning of Phila, but also it allowed us to gather. It allowed us to have a common base amongst ourselves. For instance, at the beginning of Phila, we're not all on the same, for instance, educational level. We're not all on the same age level. We're not all on the same social status. We're very different. The people that started Phila, they're very different. No one knew, even like we didn't even know each other at the time. It started with an Instagram story. What if we wanted to do this? How? Who would be interested? And it started from there and started going around. And then that's how Phila came to being. I think without the revolution, that sense of unity, that sense of a common cause, a common drive, wouldn't have existed at all, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely agree on this. Of course, from my perspective of somebody who's outside Sudan, we're always watching the country from a completely different angle. You know, we see the change happen in the political scene, and I think the whole world watches just the political scene. You know, like the names and the leaders just come and go. But I do believe, of course, it was a very cultural change as well. And for you guys, since you're working as well, like to change the stereotypes or the mentality of the people, how they name those part of the society. At the end, they shame them, they demean them, they disrespect them.
Okay.
And for anybody to start to change that's a huge thing. You know, it takes sometimes generations actually to correct some sort of behaviors.
Definitely. And like you said, change is never easy. And it's simple as that. Change is never easy, and unless you work for it, it will never happen, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. That goes for individuals, that goes for anybody and having something in their personal life, or as big as like changing something that's happening in the country. And I congratulate you guys for the work you've been doing. It's not easy for sure to keep fighting for something like this, because I believe it's exhausting. It takes a lot from your personal times as well. And but of course, if you have a very good like cause and long-term goals and everything is well planned, then for sure you will reach there and you will even do more. You know, that's you should always be grateful to Allah for this. Yeah. Okay. So
Alhamdulillah, that's the plan. That's the goal.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. All right. I want to know something about Phila that you guys worked during the pandemic as well, like to help the families that was affected, right?
Yes. During the lockdown, Phila started the Family Initiative, which was a collaborative effort led by Phila to try and provide marginalized communities in Sudan with the support they need. Because as we know, in Sudan, most of the people live on a day-to-day basis. They live based on what we call here in Sudan al-Yawmiyya. So whether it was tea ladies, whether it was, for instance, builders, whether it was so on, and there aren't any protective laws that protect such individuals in Sudan against sudden cut from salaries or cessation completely of salaries. And this has led us to start this initiative, the Family Initiative, in which we provided 3,500 families across Sudan with food supplies as well as financial supplies. And the way this was done was actually very interesting. We kind of mapped the families and decided where we are going to give financial support and where we're going to give food supplies, for instance. And that was based on a lot of variables. For instance, their proximity to the cheap selling points that were set up by certain major companies in the country, and so on and so forth. And by the end of this project, which only lasted 4 months, it started in April, it ended by the end of August, I believe. End of August or early September, I can't quite remember. But by the end of that project, 15,000 individuals were reached by our field teams across Sudan. We focused, because of the restrictions, because of the travel restrictions at the time, our main focus was in Khartoum itself, but we didn't centralize the focus. We tend to go to the margins where no one ever goes. And yeah, it was a huge project that we're very proud of. It was a life-changing experience, and doing this work firsthand, you get to hear a lot of stories, you get to experience a lot of what the people go through. And this, in a way, is one of the reasons we continue to push forward for the cause that we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely different from any NGO that's working like, I don't know, like they're just, I don't know, they work like for national organizations and they don't get to meet the local people, and they don't understand exactly, the how the society thinks. They're coming from the outside. It's just like, a charity from outside. But you guys, you are from the country. You are living the problems as well. Of course, you're also facing the lockdown. You're also facing the pandemic. You also have families and relatives. And for you guys to do this, I think that's admirable. But to reach 15,000 Sudanese during the pandemic or during those 4 months, I think that took like a lot of work and a big team, I suppose. How big is your team?
Honestly, the team isn't that big. There isn't a team big enough for the work that we do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, honestly, it took a lot of dedication. We didn't have such a big team, honestly, on the field because of simply COVID. People are scared. People want to protect their elders. People want to protect their parents and their grandparents and their families. And working on the field had its hazards. Many of the field team members caught COVID while delivering those supplies, and so it had its risk. So the field team wouldn't have exceeded at the very best 80 individuals, and that's at the very most. But it took honestly a lot of dedication. Some of the team members honestly would stay up until 2 a.m. on the streets of Khartoum delivering supplies against the restrictions, against the lockdown rules, to make sure that the supplies reach the people they were supposed to receive those supplies. And yeah, like I said, when you see it, when you see this kind of struggle firsthand, you cannot simply back down. You cannot simply ignore it, and it drives you. Yeah. Honestly, and take my word on this, it will drive 80 people to reach out to 15,000. It is doable.
Yeah, I think it's doable because you guys have done the difficult work or the hard work, which is like really crazy. Of course, like knowing Sudan, being in Sudan before, the idea of going from point A to point B, Khartoum al-Bahri, Khartoum al-Durman, whatever, it's not as simple as anybody could think because the roads are not prepared for that. Like, let away the pandemic and COVID and restrictions, just the idea of going from here to there, that's a mission by itself. So, like, more obstacles, it's even getting harder and harder. So, getting into the obstacles, like away from all these physical obstacles, I want to know, like the let's say, emotional obstacles or what the society says against you. Does that happen even though you're doing good work?
Look, you're a Sudani guy and you've been in Sudan.
Yeah.
I believe, for a good amount of time. And the Sudanese community, by nature, has grown accustomed to a certain level of, how can I say this, racism, classism, and inequality in general. For instance, I'm light-skinned in Sudan. So when they see me deliver something to someone who is of a similar skin tone, for an example, there is immediately that idea that, oh, he's helping his people, he's taking care of his people. Keeping in mind the very, very complex tribal structure of Sudan itself. People from the northern are seen in a certain way by people from the northern region, are seen in a certain way by people in an eastern region or a western region or so. And so that was honestly a very, very huge obstacle. And I'd like just to highlight this. One of the main things that hit us honestly very hard during this particular project was the fact that we discovered that the pandemic wasn't only affecting us as a community or as individuals within the community. It was also affecting the very fabric of the Sudanese society, because people who weren't receiving help from any entity were looking differently at, for instance, people who are well off. They don't need help. We don't need any support. And those were looking differently at the groups that would receive, for instance, help earlier than them. And
so it's dividing people somehow.
The COVID-19 was and honestly still is, with the second lockdown looming on the horizon. I believe it is a huge threat to this very particular area of the Sudanese society. But I think people are a little bit more well prepared this time to face the pandemic. The rising numbers and the rising cases in Sudan, they're not making anyone's life easier. Everyone's scared for their life, but it just goes to show how fragile Sudan is, and so how much Sudan is in need of the work we do and the work people like Phila and other organizations like Phila do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much work need to be done. Like, it wasn't just like the revolution and that's it. Everything gonna be, rainbows and stuff. No, that's the point where the hard work starts. Actually, if you're gonna just lay down and complain about what's happening, or you take an initiative, do something as great as Phila, or even as simple as discussing like problems in the country and trying to fix something, trying to see who can you help, which part. That you can, help at least the people around you, like in the neighborhood, in Phila, this kind of stuff. You can do so much instead of having this attitude of Sudanese uncles, like sitting down on plastic chairs and crossing your legs and sipping your coffee and then like cursing the government and cursing this and that.
Exactly.
You can do. Everybody can do something. And now again, like back to in our pre-chat before the episode, you said the power of social media. Like again, you started
exactly.
you started Phila with a story on social media.
Exactly, and Phila continues because of social media. Because if we cannot speak about the problems and we cannot ask for help, we're not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah. I think that's another obstacle, but people outside Sudan don't realize like how terrible the internet is. So for you as well, guys, like. For me, like to upload a story, it's a matter of like choosing the caption or changing the filter. For you have an extra obstacle, which is the internet itself, and people don't realize like
looking for a connection. That's
it's another problem.
That can be a hassle.
So I think that says a lot, like how bad the infrastructure in the country, and so many things need to change. And I think like when the people are motivated to do a change in this particular field, like supporting the orphans, or like another amazing initiative you guys had, which is planting a tree. I forgot the name of it, like Green for Sudan or something like this, right? Was it?
Yeah, that was a work we've done in collaboration with Green for Sudan. Yeah. and entertaining Green for Sudan. And it's they're doing amazing job as well. It was just honestly we simply helped again with that, but it was the work of this amazing initiative. It's called Green for Sudan, and they're doing also amazing work here.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I'm trying to cover up all the initiatives that you guys have done since the beginning, since like August 2019 till today. So you said you had the pandemic relief for the families. You have the orphanage as well. You also had floods relief, if I'm not mistaken. Can you take me more into the initiatives that you guys had from the beginning to today?
Definitely. The flooding relief project was a different approach to the problem that was facing Sudan in the period between September and late November, which was the flooding itself. The flooding didn't only destroy houses, displace populations, millions of people, kill hundreds of people as well. It in a way affected certain areas again. People who would not be able to live away from the Nile. Farmers, for instance, people who live in farming communities, people who live in the fringes and again the edges of the capital and the major cities, where infrastructure is almost non-existent. There aren't any form of protective measures taken against the floods, even though the floods happen every damn year. And so the whole idea was that certain entities and certain organizations were providing food, for example. But we noticed, we conducted a field survey in September, and we noticed that the major issue was not food. Food was certainly one of the top 3 issues in those areas, but the main two problems were health conditions and sanitary conditions. And we noticed that malaria was on the rise. Understandably, flooding of water, stagnant ponds, and mosquitoes, malaria. Diarrheal diseases were on the rise, for instance. The country itself, at the time, there was a very, very huge deficit of medications in Sudan. There weren't any malaria. You couldn't walk to a pharmacy and buy a medication for malaria if you tested positive for malaria. It was that bad at the time. And so the best measure we thought would be, what if we can, rather, instead of curing people, what if we can prevent this from happening to more people? And that was the whole concept behind the flooding relief project. We want people to have a safer stay in the camps, even though those camps are not comfortable, those camps are overcrowded. We felt that within our capacity, what we could do can be very smart, but at the same time, it can be very small and doable and manageable and have a huge impact at the same time. So for instance, part of the work we did was bury the stagnant water ponds. People were wondering, oh, we're starving, and for instance, we have very little food, but you're burying the ponds. And we had to sit down and explain to them that because there isn't enough food supplies and there isn't enough medications, your immune system is actually weaker. And so you're more susceptible to this. So if you get this, you will die. But you can wait a little bit until we get the food supplies you guys need. That was the whole mentality, trying to educate the community about what the real threat can be at this stage. And so we buried the stagnant water ponds, and then we decided to actually come up with this modified emergency toilet kind of design, where we actually designed toilets that would be mobile and can be moved from one place to another. Portable, to help actually contain the human waste, which was a huge issue at the time. The human waste was causing a surge in the number of flies. So it's the same pattern. If you cut the cycle, you can prevent it progressing into something bigger. And that was the same with, for instance, distributing sanitary supplies. You know, this would help us prevent a lot of skin infections and dental diseases. And people were wondering, why did we start distributing sanitary pads to the females? And we had also to sit down and have this very uncomfortable conversation when we had to explain that this can actually lead to way more severe complications than people think. Yani people look at it as something trivial, but in a country that you can't even afford to get an antibiotic for a reasonable price, you cannot risk getting any form of infection or any sort of infection. And so the whole concept focused around, okay, we need to protect the people from what is coming rather than what has happened. Do you get what I mean? Because at the end of the day, yes, Phila had also provided food supplies to certain areas that were in dire need. Phila had provided clothing as well to certain areas where people lost completely all their property in the floods. And the main focus was, okay, we need to also deal with those issues, but our main priority is to stop a bigger issue from developing in those camps. And so by the end of the project, which was today, alhamdulillah, the official end of the project, Phila have developed and actually distributed mobile toilets to more than 12 camps across the areas affected. This in the smallest camp, the smallest number of people, the tiniest camp actually contained over 600 individuals. And so you can kind of think about the level of impact this tiny little intervention done. And the people in those areas and those projects have helped us. For instance, those projects, for instance, like the flooding relief project and the family initiative, they've helped us not only deliver help to those in need, but also understand how help should be delivered and what kind of help should be delivered. You get what I mean?
I understood the whole concept of prevention is prevention, not looking for the cure. الوقاية خير من العلاج, as we say in Arabic.
Exactly.
That's also very educational. Like I think this kind of mentality set is need to be taught in the school. Telling people like you can prevent something, get away from it before it happens, but still we have this idea. No, we're gonna deal with it later. It's not a problem.
Let
me just do whatever now. And I don't know how, of course, this all started, maybe in the 80s or the 70s, but as Sudanese, we're just relaxed. It's okay, I'm going to deal with it tomorrow, chill, not a problem. But
I think it's genetic. It's way too genetic, honestly.
Well, hopefully it changed with whatever we're experiencing in these years. That's amazing work. Now your vision for like we talked about the past, how you guys were founded. We talked about the present and your current projects. I want to hear about your future plans for 2021 because we are recording this episode just like 7 or 8 days, just the new year starts. So
for 2021, Phila is going to be taking a different approach towards solving community issues. There are a lot of projects that are going to be targeting the Sudanese community in a way I believe that is very necessary to the way the community is right now. For instance, you find that throughout our work in the family initiative, we have actually accumulated a huge amount of data about the families that we helped, contact information, addresses, and so on. In addition to that, we got to know what the Sudanese people go through. The lack of employment, for instance, have inspired us to plan something that will deal with that. Female-related issues, and so on and so forth. And one of the major things that we're working on right now, where 2021 is going to be about 3 main projects: the Life Project, the Hope Project, and the Red Project. The Life Project is a very simple idea. Again, as I said, throughout the family initiative and the flooding relief project, we've noticed that a lot of families struggle with lack of jobs. Simply, they rely on the immediate community or the surrounding population to help them get by. And that is just not the way to go forward. It's not because those families or those individuals don't want to work. It's simply because there isn't an opportunity for them to work. For instance, you find that the level of illiteracy in Sudan is definitely going to prevent millions from getting a decent job. And so the idea was to provide families in need, select families in need, with small businesses that they can run. Obviously, of course, after receiving proper training and education about the issue from Phila trainers and from officials in the field, in the particular field of economical management and so on. The whole idea is that by doing this, we're not only helping those families get by, we're not only providing them with a source of income, we're also providing them with something sustainable that they can run on their own, that can have a huge psychological effect on those families, that can help elevate their self-esteem, that can help elevate their social status, as well as help increase their involvement in their community. Because as I said, a lot of communities in Sudan feel that they are edged out because there isn't enough space for them within the community. And in doing this project, we're hoping that we can actually tackle that issue and make sure that we are giving those people an equal chance for a better future. And that's the LIFE project. That's the first project that we're going to be working on in 2021.
Amazing.
The second project that we're going to be working on is the HOPE project. And so it's actually taken, again, based on data that we have done in the, that we have collected in the Maygoma Orphanage. We have noticed that children in those orphanages, they don't, I don't know how to say it, but those children, they don't survive. Simply, it's just as simple as that.
Like a matter of life or death. That's how it is.
Exactly. That's how it is. When we started our work in August of 2019 in the Al-Maygoma Orphanage, the mortality rate was as high as 30 per month. That is as a rate of 1 child per day. That's crazy. Keeping in mind that Al-Maygoma is actually considered the best orphanage in Sudan at the time.
I'm trying just to understand that again. It's a rate of 1 kid per day, 1 orphan per day.
Per day, and that is, and I'm saying those stats very bluntly. That is on a good month.
Oh my God!
You know, and so the HOPE project, the Maygoma renovations project, when it was concluded, or when it was actually put on hold in February of 2020, because of COVID and all that, the whole idea, the whole focus of the project was to just minimize that number, just decrease that number. And by the end of that project, the mortality rate was 3 per month. In February of 2020, the mortality rate was 3. And the whole project is actually taking its aims and inspiration from the Maygoma renovations project, and it will be injecting it into different orphanages across the country, with main focus being put on the psychological effect of being in an orphanage in Sudan.
So the mental health or the mental aspect of it.
Yeah, and that will be dealt with in a way, I believe, that is, again, this is how we think, and this is our belief. We believe that this is the way to be dealt with such issues. For instance, addressing those issues in a way that the children that are as old as 2 days old, or as old as, for instance, 5 years old, will understand. And that is through something visual, the things that they can see, the things that they can experience. Because as we know, child development begins very early. Mm-hmm. And child development is actually more sensory than adult development. Our development as adults is more intellectual. Children develop more in a more sensory manner. And so everything they see can affect their development. Everything they interact with can affect their development. Toys, the environment, the way the room looks, how lit it is. For instance, it has been proven that dim light affects the mood, and it messes the circadian rhythm and the sleep pattern for children. And that is one of the major issues, for instance, we found in Al-Maygoma, is that those children, they do not sleep properly, because to them, most of the day is night because of the fact that there isn't enough light in certain rooms. And so the whole project aims to provide those children with a child-friendly environment within which they can grow, they can develop, and they can have a better chance for a better future. The history of orphanages in Sudan is not good at all. Even the most recent history of orphanages in Sudan is not good at all. High mortality rates. Most of the children end up in compromising situations. For instance, and this is a fact, during, for instance, previous regimes, children were recruited to work for the government. And that is proven. That is a fact.
Yeah, they use them for frontline in wars.
Exactly, exactly. And when the community around them, whether around them in Sudan or around them outside Sudan, is ignorant of their problems, how are they going to feel that they connect to this community? They're definitely going to be the most vicious against this community. They're going to do everything they can to hurt the community that once hurt them and called them names and affected their growth. And
that's how it starts. That's how it starts.
Exactly.
Like you cannot like hold a 16-year-old boy and when he has a gun or the AK-47 and you ask him why did you kill the protesters or whatever. It's a very complicated question. It started at this age. So again, prevention. We should learn how to understand this. Like that's the end result, but you should go back to how this started. And I think you guys like taking Al-Maygoma Orphanages as making it like a good example, taking it from where it was to this. That's big work.
Yeah, and we would like to always believe that at the end of the day, everyone has the same chance in life. If given the same circumstances, if given equal opportunities, everyone has the same exact chance in life. It's either 50-50, you're going to do it or you're not. But you can't take children that have literally done nothing wrong in this world, shame them, name them, and then blame them later on when they grow up for things that they have been taught to do because you have not taught them anything else. And that's the whole idea of the whole project, is that we're trying to give children around Sudan, give orphanages and give orphans around Sudan it's never going to be an equal opportunity in Sudan, but it can be as close to an equal opportunity as it can be.
Yeah.
And that's the whole project. That's the whole project in a nutshell. And the last project that we're working on is actually a project that we're working on with Hygeia, which is a small youth-led initiative based in Qatar. And the idea behind this project is very simple. It's a collaboration between Phila and Hygeia. Hygeia helped us understand a very important issue, and that is an issue, for instance, that is it looks very trivial, sounds very trivial, but the effect of it is huge. And that issue is period poverty in Sudan. Period poverty is the effect of period poverty in Sudan is something that one cannot comprehend until they understand it. So basically what period poverty is, it is simply an end result that is poverty that results from girls having their periods.
Okay, can you connect the two from point A to point B? I'm so provoked right now. I want to hear more about it.
Females in Sudan, for instance, in a lot of rural areas are shamed because of their period. Girls drop out from school because of simply not having sanitary pads. That, of course, will cause them to have stains on their clothes, and that is visible to their colleagues and to their teachers and so on, and to the community around them. This creates a sense of shame about a very natural developmental process that all females around the world go through. This causes early dropout from school because families are stigmatized. They do not want to see people looking at their daughters in a different way. Early dropout from school leads to another issue, which is early marriages in rural areas. In rural areas in Sudan, females as young as 9 and 10 years old get married. to people who are way much older than them.
Yeah.
You know, that in itself creates a sense, it does not create a sense of anything. It's actually traumatizing to the females that experience this this process. It's very mentally draining for those people. It's psychologically almost impossible to understand what those girls go through in such a process. And so this causes early dropout, causes early marriages, and that leads to early childbirth.
Yeah.
You find that Sudan is one of the countries with the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. And that is due to that. And one of the main causes of high maternal mortality rate in a country is early delivery, as early as 14, for instance. In an area, for instance, that I worked in, it's called Mohamed. One of the patients that arrived at one of the hospitals where we were working in was 14-year-olds and was a 14-year-old with her child. And she came to actually do the checkup on her child. And we were wondering, okay, where's your mom? She was like, yeah, but this is my son. Why would I bring my mother with me? Do you understand what I mean? And so the early childbirth poses a lot of threats for those females, as well as the fact that they don't have any educational background. So they don't have anything to rely on in case the provider, which is the male figure in the house in Sudan, in case this provider goes away. And so a woman puts up with anything, you know, abuse, home abuse, sexual abuse, whatever kind of abuse they can, a man would put on this female. And I say a man, not all men, obviously. But she has to put up with it because she has no other option. What else can she fall back on? Yeah. And so this leads to this issue. And then that issue ends up leading to a lot of the problems that we're seeing right now in Khartoum, for instance. You find that a lot of the people, a lot of the families that are struggling, they're single moms with 6, 7 children. The father is not dead. The father just remarried in another state or something, and boom, you have a huge problem in your hands. And so the RED project aims to deal with this issue. RED actually stands for Reach, Educate, Distribute. We want to reach out to those populations. We want to educate them about certain things. For instance, the importance of education for the females, the importance of staying in school, the importance of having something to work with in the future to give you a better opportunity in life, and distribute to them reusable sanitary pads. Those are very cheap. One pad can suffice a female for almost 6 months. It's with the education about how to use those pads and how to utilize them. You can provide a female with as little as 6 pads. That would be enough for 3 years. Those 3 years can help a girl that is in 8th grade to actually finish her high school education and get a Sudanese certificate. This can give her an opportunity. Providing them past this point, for instance, with another 6 pads, that would suffice them for another 3 years, and so on and so forth. So the first step is to provide this very specific population in a very specific area with reusable sanitary pads, follow up with them, make sure that they're continuing their education, and then study the impact that this has in comparison, for instance, with their mothers, their sisters that did not, for instance, their older sisters who got married and did not have this opportunity, and try to connect and help the world understand the correlation between this issue and all the issues that we're seeing in society. Because at the end of the day, the woman is the backbone of the society. If the women are weak, the society is weak, and the society is doomed. Because that means that the sister is weak, the daughter is weak, the wife is weak, the mother is weak. And that will only bring up weak generations after weak generations, and that will, on the long run, will simply stunt the country. You will have generations piling upon each other. And that is what the RED project aims to achieve in a nutshell.
So, okay, now I'm trying to summarize. Like, you have 3 huge projects for 2021. you ended up with this project, which is a collaboration with another initiative in Qatar by Sudanese people living in Qatar. But like I was actually, to be of course, what can I say? I was completely not aware of this problem, that actually girls, like some girls drop out of school because of the shame that society puts on them when they go through their period. So actually that needs to be normalized as well. Like this kind of conversation need to be had, like this is normal. Like she should not like completely abandon her life because of this, and this leads, of course, as you ended up with a weaker generation coming for the future. See, like how very small stone led to a very big mountain. That's absolutely mental. That's absolutely mental. We have so many problems that I think it's a little bit overwhelming, right? Like to what hole can you cover? Like what can you catch this or that, or what can you do? What can't you do? But you start with small baby steps.
Exactly. You start with baby steps. You try to get the people on board. And the most important thing is to have this conversation, is to at least make sure that one extra person today learned about an issue that they were not aware of, that is happening right now in Sudan and that is affecting Sudan. And that's the most important thing, I think.
I do believe so as well. I think like I'm just out of words, to be honest, because I'm still trying to comprehend whatever you've been saying in the last 20 minutes. And I think it's too much. And I think it's too much of a problem, too much of pain. A lot of sisters of us and mothers and females like go through in the country, and of course they don't feel comfortable enough to talk about it because the society will shame them. They suffer a lot. They, as you said, like they carry 6 or 7 children that they have to take care of them, and the father just runs away. It still like haunts me. This is absolutely grave, and I'm glad that somebody's looking into this. I had no idea personally. I hope who's ever listening to this conversation, if you are a man, please, like, look further. Like, don't treat the female as just like a body or a face or appearance. Like they go through a lot of problems as well. And if you're a female, like you should be empowered. You should be proud of yourself. Yeah, of course, you've been through problems like this that we are not aware of. So just like stay strong. As Sudanese women, they need to stay strong. They have done so much for the revolution last year. We've seen like the work they've done, and we believe in them as they believe in us. So hopefully this can go to a better place, inshallah, in the future.
Inshallah. We're hoping so.
We hope so. Well, this has been an absolutely interesting conversation, full of new information. Well, at least for me, and I don't know about the viewers. Yeah. That's a very rich conversation, and hopefully, who's ever listening to this, who reached the end of the episode, I hope you learned a thing or two, about Sudan, about the problems of Sudan, and just I want to conclude by like, let's have hope for the future. That does not mean that we are doing like terribly and we're just like falling. No, actually we're improving because we are learning about this kind of stuff, which means that we have to take the initiative to work to fix it. And you've put quite good number of examples of things that were really bad last year, really bad, and then during the pandemic, and things are improving during the flood season as well. And let's hope for a better Sudan, inshallah. 2021, inshallah, is going to be a much, much better Sudan. So, Mohammed Abu-Bakr, I'm super glad that you joined the podcast. Super glad that Phila Heart exists, and hopefully more initiatives like this come to light. So I'll give you the opportunity to conclude from your part on behalf of Phila Heart.
On behalf of Phila Heart, I would like to first thank the people that made Phila Heart possible. It wasn't only me, it wasn't only 2, it wasn't 3. It was a youth movement, I believe, led by specific people, led by a concise group, but it is and was a youth movement that aims not to only address the issues that is going on in Sudan. We cannot, if we're being completely honest, we cannot address all the issues in Sudan. We might not even be able to address all the issues that we have just listed in this conversation. But I couldn't be more proud of the fact that we have learned from the work we have done. I couldn't be more proud of the fact that we are working towards fixing the problems that we have learned. And I cannot be more proud of the team that is making all of this happen. And so I would like to first thank the team that is behind Phila. And I would like to thank everyone who ever supported Phila, whether it was a donation, whether it was a help on the field, whether it was whatever. It means a lot to us. And the fact that the work that we do can help one person, again, if it helps one person achieve something in their future, become better in their future, if we can change one person's life, I believe Phila would have achieved its greatest goal. And finally, I would just like to thank you, Hassan, for giving us this opportunity to be able to talk about the work we've done, talk about the work we're doing, and in a way, spread awareness about what the situation is like, what can be done, what needs to be done, and what the world needs to see about Sudan. Everyone sees what is fed to them through whether it's social media or news or whatever. I believe the world deserves to know more, and Sudan needs to be understood better, I think. And so thank you again for this amazing opportunity, and until we talk next time.
Of course, the pleasure is mine. I'm super happy that Phila is part of the series on the podcast, which is Sudanese creators. For the work they're doing, they deserve more than that, to be honest. So hopefully, like we can have this conversation in another time where things are improving and getting better and better and better. So I'm gonna be looking forward for that. And as well, I'm gonna be listing down the social media accounts and all the donation links of Phila in the description of this episode. So for all the Sudanese, or even if you're not Sudanese listening to this episode or watching it on YouTube, so you can support, you can help. And if you're based in Sudan, I believe you guys can accept volunteers to join the team, to help in so many ways. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, that would be absolutely great. So Mohammed Abu-Bakr, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And everybody who's listening to this episode comes, as we said, part of Sudanese creators. More episodes to come. As always, available on Spotify and Google Podcast, Apple Podcast. I kind of forgot the other platforms as well. We also have it on YouTube, so it's going to be visual. So if you're listening to this, you can actually watch it on YouTube and see the reactions and the face expressions and everything of the whole conversation. All I want to say, well, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, because this actually is going to be probably the last episode of the year. And stay tuned for the coming episode. This is Hassan Talks Podcast. Peace out.